Alright, here we are into the game. GLHF from both players as spawning in the upper right. We have playing as our teal Zerg, SugarBiscuit for LI eSports. And playing for Guns and Roaches, spawning in the lower left, we have Zackor as our green Protoss player. A little bit of banter going on between the players as the game begins. So that early probe is heading out for Zackor. That's a pretty early probe scout. Good to make sure you're not getting six-pooled or something. But in fact, we see no pool, no hatch, no gas yet for SugarBiscuit, which is no surprise. That's pretty standard at this point. But the probe is there to make sure. And we do see that pool coming down. At the completely typical timing for a pool first build, and pool first is almost always the choice against Protoss, as hatch first against Protoss can often be a problem if they go forge first and, well, you get cannon rushed. And as there is indeed a forge coming down for Zackor, probably a pretty good choice. And we do see that base on the way now for SugarBiscuit. Probe hanging out and still confirming all those timings. Then heading home. Also have gas already on the way. In the meantime, SugarBiscuit's first Overlord has arrived, and, well, it's hanging out over that forge. Definitely forge fast and expand, as we just see a forge and now the expansion, so... The first cannon also on the way, causing the Overlord to start running back the other way, as well as that first gateway. Now there is this probe hiding out over here. I suspect we might see some early warp and harass, or at least as soon as Zackor can get it up there. Had a probe up there for a proxy, but oddly enough, these lings may be headed in the right direction to find it. Scouting around looking for, well, exactly that sort of thing. They don't find it yet, though, looking for proxies over here. This Overlord having retreated away from the cannon, but maintaining a good location to scout what's going on. Lings still being microed around as speed is on the way for our Zerg player, as well as queens at both bases. First one just finished made. Lings don't quite find this probe hiding in the corner. They check if there's anything going on in this base, but seem to have missed that probe. Third base already on the way for SugarBiscuit. And I think they just spotted that probe. Yep. That probe has been spotted. It is going to lose its life. In the meantime, we have a sentry coming out after that first zealot for Zackor, just being pretty defensive. No big tech choices yet, just that cyber core and first gateway and forge. Robo now, so Robo is indeed the tech choice for Zackor. In the meantime, our Zerg player hasn't been teching up, choosing rather to continue to expand quickly. And as I say that, then the lair gets started. So our Zerg player now choosing to tech up and get to that lair tech. Neither player with that many units out on the map, although a number of Zerglings did just finish. Roach Warren now on the way for SugarBiscuit. And there's those Zerglings. Speed's finished, and at the very least they're gonna allow SugarBiscuit to get the first real map control. Most of them hanging out at this forward watchtower for the minute, and gonna go poke towards this base and what's going on. Not gonna be able to get much done with that sentry and zealot there, as well as that can. There's 2 sentries in the zealot. So they see what's there, run back a little, and see that robo getting utilized. First immortal on the way. Immortals are really good against roaches, and pretty necessary, as we see 5 roaches on their way. So there's that first round of roaches finishing up for SugarBiscuit. And a Hydralisk Den already on the way. Roach is going to clear out these rocks to allow for faster reinforcement. In the meantime, creeks start to spread across the map, and overlords flying about. SugarBiscuit was near complete map control. The Protoss player Zackor are now moving out with the Mothership Core. First time we really see him moving anything out of the base other than that initial probe. Mothership Core able to rain terror over the Lings and get a few for free. Zackor, with his very defensive plays, building up a number of sentries and immortals. We may see a sort of sentry immortal all-in happen pretty soon. In fact, it is his time to move out. 4 sentries, 2 immortals, and much other ship core and his zealot heading across the map, taking that watchtower and taking that first map control. Probe bringing up the rear to set up a proxy pylon. In the meantime, got these speedlings still hanging out and seeing what they can do. Probably going to see if they can get in here, but a full wall has been made. As the one last immortal heads out, looks like this is going to be something of an all-in. We see a ton more zealots being warped in and a few sentries. So yeah, we're looking at Sentry Immortal here. Versus, well, Roaches and Hydras and Lings, so both sides with a pretty good army and pretty good composition. Much higher army supply for SugarBiscuit at this point, but especially when Roaches are what you're facing, Immortals are pretty good. And with force fields to keep the Lings away, like the Protoss forces, doing pretty decent, trading pretty decent, but I'm not sure that will really be enough. Another round of Zealots being warped in by a Warp Prism that's come to do more reinforcement and brings another Immortal to the fray, but all the Immortals fall, leaving nothing but a raw Warp Prism, which it does get away rather than under the cover of a few Zealots being taken out by the rest of SugarBiscuit's army. So that was pretty much Zackor's entire army supply getting taken down. He's had some more Warpins at home in the meantime, just a ton of sentries to try to hold back the army of SugarBiscuit as long as he can, but SugarBiscuit with a good number of Roaches and Hydralisks. Now there are a few Immortals out to try to deal with these, but the army advantage really is in SugarBiscuit's favor at the moment. He's going to take down these rocks to try to make an attack from that angle, but that has been seen, so everything's right there. Aaron is ready and waiting. Zackor is working on the edge. pretty good force field being used, allowing the Protoss army to trade extremely efficiently against this small army of SugarBiscuit. He hasn't really sent forward many reinforcements yet, so they are being pushed back and regrouping with the reinforcements all the way back at SugarBiscuit's base. Meantime, we do have a few Hydras fighting with this one Immortal. Hydras are extremely good against Immortals. But the only thing that's actually better and more efficient against Immortals is to surround it with Zerglings. So they do spot this proxy pylon, and it takes time to take it out as reinforcements are coming up. This warp prism carrying around a few units, just a few zealots, and probably going to try to do some drop harass back in the main base. In the meantime, with those reinforcements having grouped together, there's Zerg player moving forward. Those Hydras doing a number on that first Immortal, just taking down all of its shields for almost free. But mostly just continuing to poke as these Zealots are now warped in and start working on these Morphin Spine Crawlers. They do get down all of the Spine Crawlers, and with no army at home, SugarBiscuit sends his army home to try to help defend against this before too many drones go down. But the drones are not being pulled, so the Zealots are able to be quite effective against them. A number of Zealots also being warped in from the warp prison. But the army now arrives to save the day. Probe's drones finally being pulled as the army cleans up all of these Zealots. The warp prism escaping and hiding over here for the moment. So we're probably going to see more drop harass like that, as that can be quite effective against the Zerg player going Roach Hydra. In the meantime, we also see a ton of Swarm Hosts starting to be morphed in and Enduring Locusts, so the Zerg player moving up to that tech choice. A Hallucinated Phoenix sees the 4th base coming up, and another one going up by the 3rd. Sees that full saturation 3rd going. In the meantime, Extended Thermal Lance is just finished, and the first Colossus is just about to head out of the bay. With a second immediately on the way. And there's more of that warp in harass that I figured we'd see. Looks like they got the Hydralisk again. SugarBiscuit will need to make another one of those if he wants more Hydralisk. And they do get the Warp Prism this time. The Warp Prism just being left there rather than running away after warping in. So. And as another important note, those Swarm Hosts were indeed scouted by that warp and harass. So in the meantime, we have our Protoss player moving down to take a 3rd, taking down a few Lings that were hanging out to scout for just that. And a number of warp-ins and more sentries and stalkers. See Blink on the way and about halfway done, as 2-2 is about halfway done for our Zerg player. +2 weapons on the way for our Protoss player. All players being at 1-1 right now. And these Colossi, these Swarm Hosts, but there aren't really that many Swarm Hosts at this point, so it's really mostly going to be the Colossi versus Roaches and Hydras. And Colossi do a number on Hydras, pretty darn good. The Immortals. This army of SugarBiscuit just gets crushed. The Swarm Hosts backing up to join up with some more Swarm Hosts to try to mount a defense. And there are now enough Swarm Hosts to do pretty good work and actually start doing some damage, but the question is that damage fast enough? In the meantime, the Protoss player trying to harass anything that might be at this base, but the only thing that can really go on is the larva eggs morphing in, and anything that morphs in getting attacked. In the meantime, the locusts are now arriving. Nice. The some good micro, the Locusts are pretty much being kited. And other than losing the shields on one of the Stalkers, get taken down pretty much for free. That Locust coming in from the other side, though, as well as these Roaches trying to fight against these forces, using their high ground movement. But both sides can see each other due to the Mothership Core being there, and pretty much all that happens, a few Roaches are lost. And with the Locust being kind of the wrong place, looks like you're going to lose a few Roaches. But the Locusts do come down to protect their Roach friends. In the meantime, we have a few more reinforcements coming up. SugarBiscuit as we continue this extended push up into the Zerg domain. Number of Roaches being taken down by big lizards. A few Stalkers being taken down by Locusts. Pretty even exchanges really at this point. But the Protoss player is going to start to besiege this base. Finds 4 spine crawlers and decides that he doesn't have quite enough to deal with them though, and backs off after losing a few Stalkers to some spine crawlers. Got that whole army being backed off with one Colossus kind of going way over here and the rest of the army together here. In the meantime, we have a big probe transfer, so that third base is now not only saturated, but oversaturated. However, it'll just be perfect saturation once the gas geysers are down. In the meantime, we have Locust being fired up outside Colossus. Locust chasing down this army, but, well, Locust's not known for being very fast off the creep. So his army's going to continue to push forward, being able to avoid the Locust. Stop for a minute to slice up Locust with giant lasers. And so, having caught those swarm hosts out of position, and thinking they have enough DPS to deal with it, they move forward under this third base. But a ton of Corruptors coming in to take down these Colossi. Corruption not being used, but with that number of Corruptors it is enough. All those Colossi going down to Corruptor fire, but there's nothing else on the ground other than a few Locusts arriving for SugarBiscuits. So going to lose this base and all the work is at it. Work is not even bothered to be pulled, and the base just completely gets shredded. One Colossus still stands as the Corruptors with no backup and backed off. Now it's a few Roaches and another round of Locusts arrive, and that Colossus does go down, but SugarBiscuit Smasher looks like it's also about to go down. Even without that Colossus, there's still a few Immortals with this army. Actually, Corruption being used on the Immortals, though, which is extremely helpful. It's actually a great tip for you Zerg players. Corruption is actually extremely effective against Immortals, negating their bonus. Anyway, so these Stalkers have blinked up into the main, taking out what workers and things they can there, but it looks like this attack is finally going to end up cleaned up. In the meantime, this fourth has gone down as well, leaving SugarBiscuit's condition pretty dire. He's about to be on one base if he doesn't get these Stalkers, and he doesn't get them quite fast enough. Our Zerg player is now down to one base, and there's not many minerals added. He does have the resources to remake a base. He does have a pretty decent army. In fact, a much bigger army at this point than his Protoss opponent, but he's got no economy at this point. Remorphing in this base is, well, that base hadn't been mined at all yet, so probably the most sane one to get the most minerals from, even though it's pretty forward into Protoss territory. In the meantime, the little bit of army the Protoss has is taking down these rocks to take the fourth. They see a ton of locusts and blink back, only using a bit of shields on the stalkers, but knowing where the army is, our Zerg players sending forward a ton of roaches and corruptors. The corruptors take down the Colossus pretty much for free. And the second one arriving to reinforce the stalkers are... Well, they have a lot of stalkers. It might actually be enough to deal with these roaches, but with the high ground vision afforded by those corruptors, not quite. Stalkers being allowed to work a little bit on those corruptors for free, but the roaches are going to take them down. Got some Void Rays flying in though. Void Rays pretty good against corruptors. And you see those Void Rays just melting those corruptors. There's a lot of corruptors, but Void Rays are really good against corruptors. However, with good target firing, there were only 3 Void Rays and a lot of corruptors, so although a lot of Void Rays were lost, there was still enough. 3/4 of the health of this base goes down to the very end of a locust attack. Looks like these roaches are going to be able to finish off this third base, but all the probes have been pulled, so all he's really going to lose is the base, and it looks like he's going to try to establish a new base up here. This is scouted by the one roach, but Becky's probe starting to distance mine from that base as that third indeed was finished off. Another little engagement going down here with the corruptors taking down another Colossus. Those corruptors have been really doing work for SugarBiscuit. And in fact, Zackor GG's out, losing that Colossus and having lost his third base. In the meantime, the bases had been reestablished for SugarBiscuit. So that'll be it for set 5, I believe that was.